Well, right now we're going to go vertical. I asked Brian Pirtle to join us to talk about vines and their supporting cast, the trellises.
Right, the trellises, that's right.
A lot of purposes for vines.
Yeah, there are. You know, vines can be used to enhance a fence or a wall. They can also use to cover up an ugly fence or an ugly wall. I guess it all depends on how you look at it. Yeah. I also like to use vines in an area where you just don't have much bed width. Like there's an old garage wall, and then there's a 2-foot flower bed, and you can't use upright plants because you don't have enough room. You can put a trellis up against that wall and use a vine to soften that garage wall. And we get that question a lot, is how do I soften that garage wall with plants?
Well, show us some here. Let's start.
We're going to start with English ivy, and this is a real nice evergreen vine for the shade. And you can see it here on a stake, and then right behind you can see it's been creatively trellised into squares, and this isn't hard to do. It's something that's actually quite easy to do.
So it's just when the new growth comes, you just kind of wind it around. It looks like there have been ties.
Zip ties, yeah, or bread ties that they've tied them all on with, and not too hard to do. And then this is a grapevine. This is a Dutchman's pipe. Very unusual vine.
And very large vine.
Yes, very large. And a grapevine, old-fashioned, hardy vine. And I just love, I'm going to show you the back of the flower, too. That's why they call it Dutchman's pipe, because it looks like a pipe.
That's cool.
And then down in front of it is Boston ivy. I've got a couple different varieties of Boston ivy. This is Green Showers Boston ivy. It has a large, glossy leaf.
Now, doesn't that just get brilliantly red in the fall?
Brilliant red in the fall, yes. Excellent fall color. And then this is regular Boston ivy. It has a little bit smaller leaf, almost looks like poison ivy.
Well, now, what should you do? Because I've heard several different ideas about ivies and which ones can damage the masonry and which ones can't. Do you have opinions on that?
Yes, I've got some personal experience. I was a mason for a few years back in my teenage years, and I found that the tendrils on the ivy do not really hurt the brick that much. After years and years and years of being on there, they will damage it a little bit, but it's not considerable damage. You might have to have, instead of having your house tuck pointed every 30 years, you may need it every 25 years when you have vines on it.
Okay.
And this is my favorite perennial vine. This is cross vine, and it's evergreen. Keeps its leaves through the winter, and it also blooms heavy in the spring and then sporadic throughout the summer. And hummingbird magnet. The hummingbirds just love it.
Well, it's so hardy, and it seems to really like our Oklahoma climate.
Loves this climate. Yeah, very, very hardy, very easy to grow. And then this is another one that I really like. This is Akebia. Not often used, and this will grow in sun or shade. A very vigorous vine, somewhat akin to like a honeysuckle in its vigor.
The leaves, it almost has kind of a sweet pea look to it, doesn't it?
The leaf texture is awesome. That's one of the things I like the best about it. The flower's not very showy, but the leaf texture is enough to keep it in the garden for me. And then next to it is another unusual vine. This is a climbing hydrangea, and that is a very slow vine. Grows very slow, grows in the shade, but has that beautiful white hydrangea flower.
That is very unusual. I've never heard of a climbing hydrangea.
It actually has a peeling bark. I'm going to lift it up. And the bark peels almost like a birch might peel.
That's pretty.
So it gives you some winter interest when the plant doesn't have any leaves on it.
So I see you've got a trellis behind. Would this be for the cross vine?
Yeah, that's a trellis, and sometimes you need to do that. You need to put your trellis up against your wall or against your fence to allow the cross or any type of vine to grow on it. There's a few vines that are self-adhesive, but most of them are going to need something to grow on.
Like the clematis.
Clematis definitely is going to need some type of a trellis. A beautiful flower, comes in all different colors, and very slow. It doesn't grow fast, and so it's going to take a while to climb up your trellis, unlike in back of it is honeysuckle, which is going to grow up the trellis yesterday. I mean, it is extremely fast, and wonderful fragrance. That old-fashioned honeysuckle fragrance brings back lots of memories.
Now, on the clematis, that's something that you would want to whack that back in the springtime?
You can cut it back in the springtime, but it's so slow, you're not going to have to do that for the first several years. And then once it starts getting up there where it's going, then you can do some trimming on it in the springtime. But that's one of those you don't have to do a lot of trimming. The honeysuckle, you'll be trimming it often.
This shade of red is just incredible.
Love that mandevilla. Now we're going to some vines that are either tropical or annuals that you'll have to replace every year. But one thing about the annual and tropical vines, a lot like the annual flowers, they give you so much bang for your buck. Nothing's going to bloom as much and as long as that mandevilla. It's just going to bloom non-stop all summer long.
But it needs quite a bit of sun?
At least a half a day of sun, and really preferably that hot afternoon sun. And comes in quite a few colors. Here's a pink one over on this side here.
Well, it's definitely showy.
Very showy. I like the big tropical glossy leaves as well. I think that adds just another facet to the garden. Now, in front down here, this is a very slow vine. This is called candy corn vine.
You gotta love that.
That is the cutest little vine. And I would grow candy corn vine on a small trellis, something like this, because it's so slow and pokey, it'll take a while to get up the trellis. So you can grow it on a little small trellis, strictly kind of ornamental.
That might be good in a pot, too.
Great in a pot. I think that's a wonderful idea. It could trail over as well as go up. And behind it is hyacinth bean vine. This is one of my favorite annual vines. Grows like the dickens. Has this beautiful purple flower all summer long, and the hotter it gets, the more it flowers. And then after it flowers, it gets this great bean. And you can harvest those beans, and then you can plant them the following year into the garden again.
It's like the Jack and the Beanstalk.
It is like a Jack and the Beanstalk. Behind it, I used a few shrubs that have been pruned in kind of a fun manner. This is a euonymus that's been pruned up against the wall. And then this is a pyracantha that has been pruned up against the wall. So it would do the same thing as a vine. It's just a pruning practice to get you there.
How often would you want to prune these during the year?
I would say once a year, maybe twice a year at the most. The euonymus might take a little bit more than that because it's so vigorous.
Like right now, where you would just lop it off, just the extra.
It's definitely needing a little bit of haircut right now, and I would just go through with the head shears and just shear it back.
Well, great advice. Lots to look at here at TLC. Let's just go vertical. Love it.
All right.
Well, coming up next, Linda Shackelford, the garden guru, answers your garden questions. Stay with us.